Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. As always, wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on, thank you guys so much for all the support, all the messages, all the things that you sent to me, all the things that you sent to the show. Really appreciate all of that. Keep all of that coming. And I look forward to hearing from you guys and hear about the things you got going on in your coaching world or the things that you want to hear discussed. Love that engagement. Love being able to connect with you guys. So keep that coming as we jump in here on this episode. Today, what we're going to do is talk about the concept of getting players college ready. And it's such a pertinent topic, and it's one that I love that I get to address numerous times and have throughout the years that I've been doing this show, because the landscape, I feel like, for getting players ready for college is always shifting. And I think that the more opinions and the more you can hear from different people who are in the trenches and in recruiting and coaching at a college level, I think for you guys who are mostly high school coaches, this is super helpful for you guys to kind of get a little bit of an insight as to the things that you might be able to do to help get your guys ready to be seen at the college level, and a little bit more about the recruiting process itself. So let's dive into it today with my guest today, who is the assistant men's basketball coach out at Lower Columbia College. He also directs a nonprofit as well, More Than Hoops, which I'll let him speak about as well. But without further ado, very happy today to be joined by Coach Allan Brown today. Coach, again, pleasure to have you on here. How are things going?
Yes, thank you. It's my pleasure to be on here. Things are going pretty well. I'm excited to be on the show today. I actually am a fellow listener, so it's cool to always be on a show that you listen to.
Isn't that awesome? I appreciate that, Coach. Love the support. Let's start, Coach, with you. Talk to us about your basketball journey and your coaching journey. Yeah, you have a couple hands in a couple different pots, so to speak, right now. So talk about the nonprofit that you direct, the journey that led you to Lower Columbia College, and just your coaching journey in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm originally from Sacramento, California. I played JUCO basketball in California at Cosumnes River College. I played NAI basketball at Northern Montana. We were very successful. My 2 years that we were there, top 25 team in the country. After school, I actually did a little bit of retail banking and kind of dabbled in some other adventures. And I just couldn't leave basketball alone. And so I moved back to Washington with my daughter's mom. And, I was able to meet Coach Roffler, who was the head coach at Lower Columbia at the time. Very successful coach, had been there for about 25 years. I got to work with him my first 2 years. Successful, won a league championship, made it to a Final Four. And then after that, he retired after those 2 years. And Coach Polis came in. And really cool story about Coach Polis. He's actually from Longview. He played at LCC, and his dad was one of the coaches here. One of the crazy things in Lower Columbia's history is there's only been 5 coaches to ever coach the program.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where guys get in here and they stay a long time. And so it's been a really cool adventure for me to be able to be with the coach who was kind of on his way out and kind of see what it looked like, someone who had years of experience, and then to turn around and be with the coach who was a first-time head coach, learning as we go and kind of figuring out his identity and kind of how he wanted to be as a head coach. And so I've kind of got to experience both sides of that and kind of see what it looks like at the end, and then what it looks like at the beginning as we're getting to, being a very successful person, and coach. And so, experience has been really fun here at Lower Columbia. I've been here for 10 years now. In my 10 years, we've won 7 conference championships total. I've been to 2 Final Fours, been to 5 Elite Eights. We won the NWAC championship last year. So it's been really, really cool. Really cool experience, a lot of success. And then, yes, you're correct. About 3 years into my assistant coaching stint here at Lower Columbia, I started my own AAU program. And I kind of did it for a multitude of reasons. One of the reasons was just I wanted to know the landscape of the Northwest. It was the first time I'd ever lived here, and so I didn't know the players, the region, and I'm trying to figure out the who's the who. And so the best way to do that is kind of get into grassroots basketball, and kind of you start to see teams and players and meet coaches, and it kind of was able to help me connect some of the dots. And after that, we've just had a ton of success in the grassroots lane. I'm completely independent. I've had chances to be on circuits, or secondary circuits and things like that. But for me, in the grassroots lane, it's really just being able to help kids and help them get to college, no matter what level, Division 1, 2, 3, NAI. But yeah, just be able to give them that platform, and kind of share the knowledge and give back all the things that coaches and people and teammates have given me along the way. And so I love it. I love helping kids. As we were kind of talking before, I'm also a middle school teacher. And so I'm around kids all day long. And so, yeah, it's really cool to just kind of be around the different mindsets and levels of young individuals.
You brought up something that I thought was kind of interesting, so I wanted to pick your brain about it. You said you started the AAU to kind of get a sense of what kind of the landscape was, right? Because you were moving and you were in a different area and wanted to kind of get a sense of maybe what basketball looked like in the Pacific Northwest. So, as you kind of got going with AAU, what differences, if any, did you notice about what basketball was like, or what the club scene was like there versus when you grew up in Sacramento?
Yeah, and I found out right away too. Like it's different, for sure. I feel like the game of basketball in other regions is always played differently, and even California to the Pacific Northwest. I feel like California, there was a lot more athletes. The games played a lot faster. It's a lot more up and down, more of like a track meet in a sense.
Sure.
And when I got to the Northwest, it was a lot different. It was a lot slower pace. There was a lot more shooting involved, a lot more. Just running sets, and I don't want to say organization, but yeah, it was just a lot more toned down, I guess. Less fast break, less up and down. Now, don't get me wrong, you have your teams everywhere that kind of do, those things no matter what region you're in, but just kind of overall, that's kind of what I got a feel of. And yeah, like I said, for me, it was to be a recruiter at the college level, right? Like you got to know players and know coaches and, find players. And so if no one knew who I was, they weren't going to call me if they had a player,
Yeah, yeah, you'd be a big unknown,
So,
right?
yep,
Who's this guy?
yep. And so it was just kind of like I said, it was a way for me to kind of get out there and kind of see the players and meet coaches and, meet high school coaches. And the AAU landscape is very interesting nowadays. And I'm only 33. And so me only being, 15 years removed from playing AAU and all that stuff, like the game has changed a lot. And just the way people do things and the way it's operated. I feel like when I was growing up, there wasn't as many AAU teams as there is now. It was kind of more of just, I don't want to say upper echelon, but like, you were good. Like people came and found you because you were good and they wanted you to play. Now I feel like in a sense there could be a lot of watered downness and just there's a lot of teams. And there's nothing wrong with having a lot of teams and having places for players to play, but I feel like the way it's marketed is always interesting. If you're a development group, market yourself as a development group. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're an elite group with elite players and elite kids, like market yourself that way. But I feel like now in the social media era that, everybody is marketed kind of under one blanket as elite, upper level, high level. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And kind of that was my way of, being in that scene was kind of my way of figuring out like, who are these kids? You read the paper, you see online, oh, this kid and that kid. And so, like I said, it was just kind of a way for me to get a face to the name and then kind of start getting known in the region to, put myself in a position to now 10 years later, kind of be known and get the call on the good kid. You know what I mean? Or people are call you, hey, I got a kid now, and so it kind of
Right.
makes
Yeah,
your
yeah.
job a little bit easier. And I'm sure experienced coaches know this, the more you're known, the more coaches will call you when they got a player.
Yeah, that trust element there is huge once you get your name out there, right? And people know who it is that you are. Definitely. So with that then, when you're thinking about that transparency and honesty of what your AU program is, what is your marketing approach? What is your kind of approach in branding? How is your more than hoops one? What is the I guess the pitch or the image or whatever the case may be that you're advertising to potential players?
And honestly, my pitch is just honesty and transparency. I would say we're independent. I wouldn't say we're upper echelon, but we're a good mid-tier program. we have kids that we send to college every single year at all levels: Division I, Division II, Division III, NAI, full rides. We believe in what we do. We help prepare kids on and off the court for getting ready for the next level. I feel like we do a really good job of finding the right fit for players at the 4-year level. Not everybody's a Division I player, and we tell parents that right off the bat. Like, hey, some kids are Division I players, great. Some kids are not, and that's okay. Like, our job is just, can we help you get a free education? Can we help you advance yourself? In life through playing basketball. And so I like to say we're a mid-tier program because we're not full of 5 stars. We're not, I don't got NBA guys and all that, but we do have really good players, like I said, that are Division I, Division II, NAI, Division III, like full ride scholarship players. And so that's what we tell parents, like, hey, we're going to do the best we can to put your kids in a position to be successful, but I can't guarantee them a Division I scholarship. I can't guarantee they're a Division I player, but I can guarantee that I'm going to work my butt off for them and, send their film out, call coaches, and like I said, just try to find the right fit. And I think that's what we do a really good job, and why we've had so much success is because the kids that are Division II players, I've helped them go Division II. I haven't tried to
Right. At the
upsell
level
them.
they're at. Yeah.
Yep. I haven't tried to upsell them or, force them to a level. We all the coaching buddies have coaching buddies at, all levels: Division I, NBA, D2 and all that. And so sometimes I feel like coaches do their buddies a favor, and hey, I'll take a kid, but it might not be the right fit for him, and then you see the transfer portal and all that. And so I feel like we just do a really good job of finding the right fit at the right level, and then, getting kids to that level. And that's kind of really my pitch, is just, hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be transparent. Like, if your son is not a Division I player, like, I'm gonna let you know, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay that they're not a Division I player. That's not end all be all. Especially with the way the whole COVID kind of backlog kind of jammed the 4-year level. And then now with the new JUCO ruling that we don't really know how it's going to fully be ruled on, as far as like whether the years are going to count like 1 year, if none of the years are going to count, or like kind of what that looks like. And so I think more kids now are like open to lower levels. They're open to JUCO. They're open because, just the flexibility of, hey, you could be a D3 player and then end up on draft night. You know what I mean? And so just because those possibilities are being seen a lot more, I think, yeah, nowadays kids are more open to being a Division II player or being an NAI player or going JUCO, where, we had a span of probably 3 to 5 years where, I mean, a lot of kids were D1 or bust.
Yeah. That I think a lot of people's eyes, I think, are opened up. And you mentioned some of the new rulings as well, but I think that there's a lot more people are open and understanding of kind of the possibilities that playing at any collegiate level can bring. And I remember, I've been coaching for a while myself, and I remember that people would, look down at the prospect of playing, at a JUCO or an NAIA or something like that, and they would think that, there's no point to it, or it's beneath them. But now I feel like people are excitedly talking about, being actively recruited and by a community college or JUCO or a NAIA or a D3. And I'm sure that even in your experience now, you probably see players who maybe are a lot more receptive to being recruited by you than maybe they would have been 5, 10, 15 years ago. They kind of see what the doors can be opened, so to speak, by, having any sort of collegiate offer.
Absolutely. I mean, think about this. 10 years ago, I don't think we've seen one commitment graphic for a JUCO.
No, right?
And now we see them all the time, which, like I said, it's part of the wave. It's part of, like, the culture nowadays. And like, that's cool. Like, and I feel like as coaches, you have to learn to adapt, right? Like, all the really good coaches, like, they just learn to adapt with whatever time or era that they're in. And so, yeah, so like I said, I'm all for it. Like, I love that more kids are open to the JUCO level. I love that more kids are open to all levels, and just finding a home and an opportunity. I think it's good. I think, yeah, it's a lot of craziness, but I think there's some good sprinkled into the craziness for sure.
So with that, before we dive specifically into getting players college ready, I wanted to ask you about, where do you kind of see the current landscape specifically of JUCOs and college basketball in general? You kind of just touched on it a little bit with your answer just now, but kind of where do you see the game as it is right now, and the way that, the landscape of JUCO, and kind of how do you think it might go in the future? How do you kind of see maybe the JUCO game specifically involving, whether it's play style, recruiting, whatever the case may be? What do you kind of see in your crystal ball, so to speak, going forward?
Man, that's a tough one. And I feel like, when people hear this answer, they're going to be like, huh, he didn't really take a side. But I feel like the way the game is going, it's going to be a real trickle down effect. I think NLI is crazy. I think, first off, I should rewind. I am all for players getting paid, right? I tell kids all the time, I was born in the wrong era. Like, I wish I could go back. Like, all of us do. We wish we could go back and have that possibility. But I think with that, there has come a lot of, like I said, just craziness. I feel like money now is kind of the forefront in recruiting. It even gets trickled down to the JUCO, right? And I'm sure there's probably some national JUCOs out there. There's some JUCOs out there that are giving out NLI money to players and figuring out a way that they could do it at that level, and make it make sense. And I think with the JUCO ruling, it'll be interesting to kind of see how they rule on that. If they say you could go to JUCO for 2 years and it counts as 0 years of eligibility, or you go to JUCO and it's 1 year eligibility. And that's kind of where I feel like they'll lean at is, hey, if you go to junior college for 2 years, it counts as 1 year eligibility, which I think is ultimately fair, because if you don't count junior college at all, you're kind of in the same boat with the COVID thing, right? There's going to be some guys that go to JUCO for 2 years, then they go redshirt out of 4 year, right? And now they're 21 and you play 4 years and you're 25.
2025, yeah, mid
Right.
20s.
Right. Or you sit out a year, go to JUCO for 2 years, right? Now you're 22, you redshirt a year, you're 23, you play 4 years, you're 27. Right. And so it's kind of like, and don't get me wrong, there's like, with everything, there are going to be people to exploit the gray area. You know what I mean? And so I think just kind of figuring it out in a perfect crystal ball world, I feel like they would, you would get a 2-for-1 option. You could play 2 years and it only counts for one. If you go for 1 year and then you leave to the 4-year level after that, it doesn't count at all against you. You know what I mean? That's kind of just like your prep year in a sense. I would like to see the JUCO be blanketed across the country. I know we have a lot of different divisions right now. Like you got your national JUCO, Division I, Division II. You got your Cali JUCOs. You got your NWAC schools, which is the Northwest, Washington, and Oregon. And I just think if there could be some unity, that would be nice. Like maybe, you have your national JUCO tournament at Hutch, and then you take, maybe the top 4 teams from the Northwest and the top 4 teams from California, and then you add them into that, national JUCO event, and everybody plays. I think at the end of the day, the job should be to help kids get exposed, right? Help kids get to the 4-year level. And so whatever way we could do that and whatever way we could put those kids in that position and get them seen by coaches, I think we got to be all on board to do that. I like the NLI. Like I said, I believe players should get paid, but I also feel like in a bigger picture, it's forcing some kids to stay in school longer, right? And before it was like, hey, I'm going to try to go be a professional because maybe that was the way to feed my family. Maybe that was like the most money I may ever see in a lifetime. Like, no one's asking me, like, how can you tell a, 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, like, I'm going to give you all this money and like, go be a pro and, be a professional. It's like, huh? Like, that's kind of hard. I mean, I know how we were, I was at 17, 18, 19, and now you add, $1.2 million on top of that. It's like, you know what I mean? We're putting kids in a tough position, and expecting the outcome to be flawless. And I think allowing kids to be paid in college, and now, why would I go to the NBA, right? Because some kids are going to make more in college than they would touching a pro floor. So it's like, hey, maybe I stay at this school for these last 2 years and I finish up my degree and I make, X amount of dollars. And maybe all of a sudden at the end of the 2 years, I realize like, maybe I don't want to be a professional athlete. Maybe I want to go pro in business, or maybe I want to go do something else. And I have a startup fund that I could use to go do it. Or I have resources now that, I'm able to go do my next adventure in life that might not be a professional, a professional athlete. So I'm for it. You know what I mean? I like I said, the trickle down effect. I want kids in school. Obviously, being an educator, I think school is important and stuff. And so, like I said, any way we could figure out how to help kids keep kids in school and help them like progress in life, like I'm all for it.
I love it. Great response, Coach. Appreciate your thoughts on that. And let's jump into uh formally, the topic of getting players college ready. So I want to talk about the work that you are currently doing with your players. Now, this is it's a couple sides to this coin because you're working with players for your AAU program as well. So you're working with players who aren't at college yet, but also you're working with incoming college players that are coming in at Lower Columbia. So um, I want to first touch on the work that you're doing to kind of prepare them for college. So as somebody who's played collegiately yourself, which you have, how are you kind of drawing on your experiences to get your players ready for whatever collegiate level they're going to be playing at?
Uh, Man, the biggest thing is just mental preparation. Um, and it's funny because I was just having this talk after I worked out with some guys this morning, guys at my JUCO, and they were tired, and I started laughing, and I said, "Man, you guys got to get in shape." I said, "Oh man, we're in shape, we're in shape." A couple of them said, "Yeah, you're right," and I said, "That's the thing is." Everybody wants to play at the highest level, but they're not in shape to play at the highest level. And
Mhm.
everybody wants to play 30, right? All high school kids want to play 32 minutes a game. Oh man, I want to play all game. But it's, are you conditioned to play 32 minutes a game? And a lot of kids aren't. And it's like, if you want to play 32 minutes, you got to be conditioned to play 40 or 45 because I'm expecting you to play both ends of the ball, right? So like, you got to be more conditioned than the time that's on the clock to really like be productive. And so in preparation, one of the things that I always focus on is mental preparation, right? Like, is it really as tough as you think it is? Because in the beginning, a lot of coaches, like it's their job to weed out the guys that aren't ready, right? Like coaches want winners, right? So how do I weed out the losers? I put them through the mental toughness test, right? Who are the guys that could stick through the mental toughness? Who are the guys that are in shape? They can do the hard, right? And then once you have the mental toughness, right? It's like, can you be in shape? And that's what we tell guys all the time. Like that's the ultimate separator is being in shape, right? Coming in elite condition. And that's something I wish I would have known, right? Like I would have
Mhm.
taken more serious. Like, man, because when you're in shape and you're like really there, hard is a little bit easier. And I tell guys that, like, trust me, hard is a little bit easier when you're in shape. When you're not in shape, hard is hard. Like, it's hard. The running's hard. Like, your legs get tired. They start feeling like jello. It's like, man, this is tough. But when you're in shape, it's a little bit easier. And another thing I really focus on is just being a good person. Like, truly, being a good person matters. And we tell kids this all the time, and I tell the high school kids this that I train, whether it be AAU or some of the high school programs I work out with, or just all because I do all types of training, pro guys, high school, college, and I tell them all, being a good person matters because at the end of the day, coaches want to be around good people. They're around their players and teams more than their family usually. Players are around each other more than they're around their family during the season and when you get to college and stuff like that. And so it's like be a good person, right? No one wants to be around someone who's always a Debbie Downer or always just not doing the right things or just always an issue, right? Like no one wants to deal with that constantly 24/7, right? Like
Right.
people, coaches want to be around good people, hot energy. We call them energy givers, right? Like be an energy giver. Come in with a smile on your face, high fiving people. And we get it. Everybody has bad days. We're not saying like you're not going to have a bad day or you're perfect, but be a guy that people want to be around. And things are a lot easier. It's a lot easier when you have good teammates. And we've all had good teammates and bad teammates. So I think people kind of know or would be able to, kind of figure out what I mean by that. But it's like be an energy giver. You know what I mean? Be a guy that coaches want to be around. You're bringing the energy to practice. You're helping guys get through that hard practice because you're high energy and you're giving guys high five and it's infectious and it's like you got the gym buzzing. Those
Yeah.
are guys coaches want to be around. And like I tell guys all the time, it's like for high school guys, it's like when you're in college, it's a job, right? So like because it's a job, like yeah, your coworkers you're around, you want to be around good coworkers, right? In high school, it's a little different because you're really only around those guys for 3 months, right? And sometimes in high school, I tell guys it's hard because sometimes you're playing with a soccer player, a football guy, a baseball guy. Like, yes, they're multi-athletes, but it's like maybe basketball isn't their primary sport. So their motive or motivation might not be the same. But when you get to college, everybody's motivation and motive is the same, right? We're all basketball players. We're all rowing in the same boat. We all got the common goal. When you get to the pros, like I tell my pro guys is, hey, you're getting paid to play now. So like, if you aren't someone I want to be around, I'm not going to pay you. If you aren't good enough, like if you're a bad person and you can't produce at a high level, you're not going to be kept around, right? Like you could be a great person and maybe produce a little bit less, but because you're a good person, you show up on time, you do things right, you're not an issue off the court, like people will keep you around, and that's kind of the same thing like college. And I tell guys, like, your output better be so high that if you're a bad character dude, like it's going to outweigh that. And even then, it rarely outweighs it.
It might not. It probably won't, right?
You know what I mean? And so to me, that's like always my message is like, and I truly feel that like being a good person goes a long way. It does. So that I guess would be my 3 things for the getting guys college ready is mental preparation, conditioning, and then just being a good person, like social preparation, just being a good person and going over what that looks like. How are you dressed? Are you showing up on time? Or, if you're with your buddies, you could use your slang and stuff like that. But, if there's boosters around or teachers around, how are you conducting your language? How are you talking? Are you shaking coaches' hands, looking people in the eyes? Just all those little things that, your mom and dad tell you all the time growing up, and you really don't think it matters until you get in that situation. Yeah, exactly. Until it does. Things that you never think matter until they do. And so we just kind of harp on those things. And being at the JUCO spot, it's one of those interesting levels that it's 5-on-5, but it's also 1-on-9 at the same time, right? Because everybody's fighting for a 4-year offer, even your teammates, right? And so when you get to the 4-year level, some of those guys don't want to be pros, right? Like, and that's okay, right? Some of them are like, hey, my goal is to make it to the 4-year level. I'm going to graduate with a degree. I'm going to do this job. And like, I'm cool with my career and how it ended out, right? In high school, some of those guys are like, hey, like, I'm just cool being a good high school basketball player. I don't want to like go to the 4-year level. Like, this is where it ends for me. Cool. Like in junior college, it's like, it's dog eat dog because everybody's fighting for that same thing.
Right.
Everybody's competing. And so it's like one of those things where it's like your mental toughness has to be on another level because not only are you playing against the other team, you're playing against your teammate. And how do you be a good teammate and do the right things knowing that like, man, this guy could outshine me and that might be my offer that he takes. But still being a good teammate and still, a good teammate. You know what I mean? Exactly. And being a good teammate and understanding that like, hey, if it's his night, if it's Johnny's night, it's Johnny's night, right? And I'm going to be a good teammate and I'm going to give him the ball. I'm not going to be mad and be like, no, I'm going to, gun a shot after he just made 3 in a row. And you see that at the JUCO level. Like that's the crazy thing about the JUCO level is you see it. Like, and I mean, you see it clear as day. I mean, I've seen games where like guys are going like hit shots or going on runs. And it's like a dude on the team is just kind of like, my turn.
Yeah.
Whoa. You're like, man.
Getting theirs, right?
Yeah. And you're just like, man, like that's crazy. And, or, we've had teams in the past where, like after the game, they're, oh man, can I see the stat sheet? Can I see the stat sheet? They're looking it up. They're trying to see, oh man, trying to get those numbers. And so it's an interesting level. It's a dog eat dog level, but I feel like that's why more 4-year coaches are starting to pull from the JUCO ranks because they're realizing that like, oh, these dudes are mentally tough. And with the way basketball is going and so much overturn and so many people entering the portal every year, 4-year level is kind of like JUCO. And it's like, hey, you potentially have a new roster every year or every 2 years. You potentially got to go recruit 10 new guys.
Yeah. It's that. I'm gonna touch on that with you in a second because I think that's something that's really unique to JUCO. Something you mentioned earlier, Coach, and I'm curious because I think those listening would be curious about what your perspective or definition is. What do you see as the difference between what a player thinks being in shape is versus what like being in shape is? How wide is that gap, and what should players be doing, and how can coaches be fostering an environment where their players are actually in shape?
Yeah, man, that's a funny one. And that kind of goes off of something we like to say too is like when we revert to watching film is like the truth machine, because it's always that thing where like sometimes players feel like they're working hard or they're doing something, and it's like, well, man, when I show you on film, it's like, oh, that's what I look like. Oh, like I see what you're saying. And with conditioning, it's very similar. Like we do a lot of time tests. I usually I do drills where like I'll put 3 minutes on the clock, and it's how many sprints can you get in 3 minutes, and baseline to baseline, and I mean sprints, like full on sprints, and different things like that. And I think players got to understand is like, are you conditioned to play the way your coach wants you to play? And I think each coach kind of knows what type of shape their players need to be in to play in that system. And so, like I said, for us at LCC, we do different drills and stuff like that, like 4-minute shooting drills. And we have benchmarks of what we feel like guys should be able to get to in some of those drills to kind of dictate if we're in shape or not in shape, or if we're on pace. And I think for coaches, you just got to kind of figure out like, how do you want to play? Like, what's your play style? If it's up tempo, and then it's like, okay, if I know I'm going to play an up tempo style and I want maybe guys to get shots off and 10 seconds are left on the shot clock, then I'm running a lot of drills that is forcing guys to play that style of basketball efficiently, right? And that's always the biggest thing, is efficiently, right? And because you hear it all the time, coaches, we want to play faster, but it's like, how are you teaching your team to play faster? What benchmarks are you setting? And so, like I said, for us, a lot of stuff is timed. We time a lot of stuff, and it's like, if we want to play fast, then we got to get them to understand, like, this is what fast is to us. Doing it in this time frame is fast to us. And so now, once you're able to do it in that time frame, now can you do it efficiently? And like I said, that maybe, I mean, when we were at when I was in college, we used to run these things called mountains, right? And we had double deck bleachers. So we used to do figure eight on the court. You run out, you run up the bleachers, you run down, you run up, you run down, you run all the way around. We would do it about 3-4 times. And on the last one, Coach Hughes would get out the ball rack, and we got to shoot, 75% from the threes as a team. You know what I mean? And so now we're shooting, guys are dog tired, and we're shooting threes dog tired, right? But what he was doing was mentally conditioning us. And now we're physically, it's like, hey, we know that when we're tired, like, we can make shots. You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of, like I said, understanding how you want to play, and then just literally detailing your drills to that standard. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, if you want to get shots off with under 10 seconds in the shot clock, then when we scrimmage and you scrimmage in your practice, like, you put 10 seconds on the shot clock. In every possession, you got 10 seconds, right? And you're just building that repetition and building that pace within the team. And then over the course of the year, you kind of see it, and guys get the feel of it. And then next thing you know, you roll around to games and league time, and it's like, okay, yeah, now you kind of get to see it on court. Yep, you get to see it.
It's interesting, and I mean this in the best way possible, to hear like you kind of affirm something that I've always kind of believed in as a coach. Is we do a lot of stuff after they're already kind of worn out, right? And this and the idea of game like shots, because I'm sure everybody listening to this, has been in those situations where they see guys, or in my case, girls in the gym, and they're really good shooters and they look really good spot shooting or on a gun or anything. But then, after they've had a full-on workout and they've been running and doing all these other things, and then they try to shoot, and like, oh man, those percentages have plummeted, or that free throw percentages have plummeted. So no, I really like that idea of game like shots, and making sure that their legs are where it is that they at, because I think players can have this disconnect of thinking that they're a good shooter versus, are you like a good shooter or a good player or a good decision maker like after you've been running for X amount of minutes. So I think putting them in those environments where they really tested to see like, hey, can you actually make this smart decision when you've been running around for 25-30 minutes of a game, or do you still have your legs to knock down 2 free throws at the end of fourth quarter? Like, putting them in those environments for them to see it, I think is something that you said, right? That tape or that film, it doesn't lie. It'll show if that's the case or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and you just hit it spot on, right? Like, we could all go in the gym and catch and shoot, stand still, and, shoot 90%, right? Or shoot very high percentages. And it's like, once you add that element of movement, all of a sudden the shot changes, right? Then you add the element of fatigue, and now the shot changes again. right? And so it's like, yeah, we like to do that. I like to do that when I train with players. We always have a conditioning segment, and then yeah, after that conditioning segment, like, can we make free throws? Can we make jump shots? I always tell guys it's easy to make them in the first 5 minutes of the game, but who can make them in the last 5 minutes?
Right.
Right? Who can make them when you're dead tired, when you've been pressed the whole game, or what happens if maybe you guys were down big and you used all your energy on a heroic comeback and you're down 5 with 4 minutes left? Like, can you be mentally tough enough, in good enough shape to make those plays to win the game?
Coach, what are some of the offensive and defensive principles that you and by extension the coaching staff at Lower Columbia believe in, and what kind of work are you doing with your guys to prepare them and get them up to speed for the types of offenses and defenses and how to run them at the collegiate level?
Yeah, man, and we are a defensive group. Like, we love defense. We pride ourselves on defense. I was like a defensive player growing up. Last year at Lower Columbia, we held opponents to 60 points per game. So I mean, defense is something we pride ourselves on, and we play 95% man-to-man defense. Good old man-to-man defense. Every drill we do, whether it's offensive focus or not, like, we're coaching defense. It's something that we're just constantly coaching about. We really try to keep guys out of the middle. We really try to make sure we're walling up, and just being physical with guys. It's funny because we don't have any like secret sauce on defense. We do probably all the same defensive drills that everybody does. We have a version of a shell drill. We have our closeouts. We have, different, depending on the matchups, like different wrinkles of defense that we practice. But I wouldn't say it's anything different than what anybody else probably does. I would just say we really emphasize it in the recruiting process, and we really focus on it every single day. I mean, we tell guys, like, you have to be able to defend with us. You have to be a willing defender. You don't have to be like an amazing defender, but you got to show that you have the effort, and the energy, and like, you will have a motor on that end. We're really big on multiple defensive efforts. Contesting every shot. Like, that's one we're really big on. You'll like, if you watch games from us, you'll probably hear me yelling, "Contest the shot," because that's just one of those little things. It's like, what a difference a hand makes, right? Running out on a guy and lifting up your arms can totally throw some guys off. Some guys, it doesn't matter, right? They're a good enough shooter. You got to be there on the catch. Like, a hand's not doing anything. But there are some guys, more than people think, that, man, just contesting the shot throws it off a little bit.
Could be enough.
Yep, it's enough. And so we're big on that. And then, like I said, just multiple efforts. Hey, if you get beat, recover. If that guy gets beat, recover. If he gets beat, recover. Like, help the helper. And that's something we really emphasize, is just like, can you continuously help the helper? We feel like nowadays, offensively, guys sometimes do a little too much. And so when you continuously rotate on defense, you'll get into a situation where guys will overdo it. They won't take what the defense gives them because they're trying to look for the highlight play or that special play. And it's like, that
Yeah.
plays into the defense's hands. It's like, oh man, you passed up on a wide open shot because you're trying to get, some fancy drive to the basket or some fancy pass. And it's like, cool, great. That gave our guy a chance to rotate and get to to that next spot, because he's banking on you doing that. You know what I mean? Like, we bank on teams not being fundamentally sound. You bank on teams trying to do too much, or guys trying to, be uncharacteristic of themselves.
It's really interesting to hear what you say, because I think that, as coaches, sometimes we, at the younger level, at the high school level, we can think that we have to maybe get our players ready for, some incredibly complex system, or get them ready for something that is super high level in terms of like intellectual understanding basketball wise. But I've always kind of had that approach of, if we as high school coaches are able to drill in fundamentals and drill in the fundamental skills that players need, in defensively and offensively, and just put them in a situation where they could be successful wherever they potentially go collegiately. Like, that's the best thing that we could do, because we don't know what sort of system a player might go into, offensive or defensively. We don't know if it'll be zone heavy or man heavy, like you, or what sort of offense they want to run. And so I think, as coaches, if we just focus on kind of those basic principles, like you said, you talked about, like closing out and the way that you play like a man defense, or things in ball movement, or just spacing and basic offensive principles, we drill those in, and our players are comfortable with that. my hope is that, any of my girls can go anywhere and they can feel that they're ready for it because they have those fundamentals already established.
I mean, absolutely, 100%. And that's one. I mean, and to go back on preparation for the next level, that is something I would hit on. Is just fundamentals. Like, and it's crazy. I've talked to so many coaches at the 4-year level, from Division I to Division II, Division III, NAI, and like, it's crazy how many kids out there lack the fundamental like foundation. They could do all the step backs, they could do all the fancy moves, but it's like some of them truly lack fundamental, like just fundamental principles. And I think that's where I think the whole big argument over like AAU and high school and all that, like trainers, are there too many trainers? I think that's where that whole conversation kind of stems from, is a lot of players are showing up to levels and coaches are like, man, I got to teach you the fundamentals. Like, you don't have a fundamental base, and you could do the advanced, but you can't do the fundamentals. And even with my trainings, that's something that I really build on, is fundamental base. And it's funny because like I'll have my pro guys is like, we start with the fundamentals. Like, once you show me that, like, hey, I have a fundamental base, then we could build on top of it and start doing all the cool stuff and all that. But if you don't have a fundamental base, like, how can you really do a step back? How can you really do some of these counters? Like, you're just doing them with not knowing why, or like, yeah, like I said, just having the structure to even do it and then play off the counter. Right. And then, like I said, that's where you kind of see where a lot of players, you see it now. It's like, instead of going in and just jump stopping and finish off 2 feet, like they'll try to Euro. And it's like, man, what are you doing? Like, why would you not just jump stop and finish?
Just do the
like,
basics, right?
Yeah, just do the basics. You know what I mean? But it's like, we're so drilled to like work on the Euro step that it's like we use it out of context,
Right.
and I see that a lot, is like kids use these moves out of context because, it's a highlight culture. I watch the highlights from the games. I watch, I watch LeBron's highlights. I watch Kyrie's highlights, Kevin Durant's highlights, right? Shai's highlights, but you're not watching the full game. So you're not understanding what led up to him making that highlight play. You're just watching the highlight play. Like, did you see that he got cut off 3 times going left? That's why he countered and went back to the right. No, you just saw the counter and go back to the right. So you think now every time I go left, I got to counter and come back right. You see what I mean? And they don't understand the build up to it and the progression. And so everything we do, everything like we do offensively, even in my trainings, I try to progression. Everything's a progression. Like, we'll start and then we'll build up on all our counters, and that progression may look as simple as catch and shoot. Now catch, pump fake, sidestep, 1 dribble. Catch, pump fake, 2 dribble, attack the basket. Catch, pump fake, sidestep. Oh, he reads it. Now I attack. Now I turn it into a post up. I turn and finish, right? Now it's catch, sidestep. Oh, the guy recovered. I make a pass. I relocate. I get it back, shoot it, right? And you just continuously start to build on those progressions that you see in basketball. And then that way, kind of like you're saying, is now when kids get in any type of situation or they get in some of these systems, it's a little bit more comfortable because you've built on progressions. And so you understand progressions and how the game is being progressed and why I'm making this read and why I'm doing this move, because of this is how the defender closed out against me. Or, I made this pass because I'm not reading my defender, I'm reading the help side defender, right? And I saw him make a move, so I adjusted to him. And just some of those nuances of the game. And that kind of goes into the offensive side of it, is we watch a lot of film. Like at LCC, offensively and defensively, we watch film, tons of it. We probably watch film 3 to 4 times a week. And we're watching it on ourselves. We're watching it on the opponents. We're breaking it down with players on like what we're seeing and how they could be more successful or where advantages are. And I think that is kind of part of that mental preparation, is like, you got to see yourself, right? Like, guys go in the gym, they do all these workouts, but they never like watch themselves. Right. And like, how do you, like, how do you know if what you're doing even works, or if you're doing it at the right speed, at the right tempo? Like, you're just in there working out. Right. And even with our workouts, like, I try to do more small group stuff now so we could be in some live situations. We could put a help side defender out there. We could, play one-on-one. I've started to do that a lot more in my trainings, more one-on-one, more 2-on-2, more 3-on-3, right? Like, letting you play, like, let's drill out all this stuff. Okay, now let's go apply it. Let's go play a little bit and see, and I've even started to do like, we'll break down a drill, we'll drill something, work on it, and then we'll immediately play one-on-one right after. Okay, now let's apply everything we just worked on in a game-like situation.
And I think that lends perfectly to the follow-up that I was going to ask about the concept of training basketball IQ and getting players to be better decision makers. And it sounds like one of the things that you're doing is intentionally putting them in situations where they're consistently and constantly making decisions so that their basketball IQ just kind of naturally develops for the work that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I make up a ton of random, like, small-sided games, or games in general. Like, I'll do 1v1. Hey, you can only score with the left hand. Right. And so now players are like, I can only but now the creativeness is thinking like, okay, I know I can only score with my left hand. The defender knows I can only score with my left hand. How do I score 3 points? Right? Like, how do I score 3 points? I know I can only shoot with the left. The defender knows I can only shoot with the left. But now I have to be creative on how to get to the basket and score when everybody knows what's going on. You see what I'm saying? And so now I'm building up. Now, maybe you got to use more pivots. Maybe you got to use your speed. Right? Maybe you use more pump fakes, right? So like maybe you back them down and you use a shimmy, right? Like all those things start to play in your mind because now you're thinking like, he knows I can only shoot with my left, but I still got to be creative to score because I'm competitive. I want to win. I don't want to run.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. You got to figure out a way, right?
Yeah, you got to figure out a way. You got to figure out a way. And so now we put you in those situations where it's very controlled. It's very demanding on what you can and can't do. Sometimes I play 2-on-2. Hey, you only got 2 dribbles every time you touch the ball, right? Or sometimes we'll play 2-on-2 full court where I'm the outlet person. So if you get a rebound, you throw it to me. Now I'm making the outlet pass, forcing guys to get back on defense, forcing guys to run the floor, right? And so now the game is so controlled. When you get in an uncontrollable situation, it's like your thought process is already speeding, right? Because you've been in a situation where I can only score with my left hand, but I could use both right now. So I know if I have to get to my left, I could get to my left. And the defender doesn't know if I'm going to go left or right.
Doesn't know. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of like opening up that, and now maybe you're in a situation where it's like, oh man, I know if I run the floor super hard, like I could get a layup, right? And because we played 2-on-2 like that, when you see the guy get the rebound, your natural instinct is like, I'm shooting off down the floor. Like, boom, I'm taking off. Oh, we got the rebound, I'm gone. And so yeah, just trying to put guys in those situations. So now when I get in the game, like I said, it's not an uncomfortable situation. You've seen something like this before. Oh, I'm under the basket and he's driving me left. I could score left. I'm in the corner. I've played one-on-one in the corner so many times. I'm comfortable getting to the rim or I'm comfortable getting to my spot to get a shot off. Yeah, like I said, just kind of building those basketball moments within training to try to make it as real or as live as it could be. So that way, when you get to the game, like I said, that learning curve and that nervousness of like being in an uncontrollable situation, you feel a little bit more comfortable because it's like, hey, I've been in something similar. Like I've been in the simulator. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've experienced. I've been had these restraints put on me in practice before, where I had to work on all these things, right? And I had to adapt and adjust just like you would in a game. No, for sure. I totally 100% get that. Wanted to ask about before we hit our concluding segment, Coach, about what I guess is a twofold kind of question. So I'll kind of start with the first part. But what work do you do, and what work can coaches in general do to help players along with the recruiting process? I think for a lot of coaches at the high school level, like myself, we definitely want to be an ally to our player, and we want to make sure that they're getting seen by the right people, and we're there to assist them and help them on their journey, and make sure that their recruiting process is as positive and as beneficial as possible. So what work is it that you're kind of doing with the guys that you're working at the AAU level, and in general, what can us as coaches do to make sure that we're being an ally to our players?
Yeah, man, I'm really happy to answer this question too, because I really feel like this could help a lot of coaches out there, men or women. One is take your team to practices. Like take them to junior college practices, take them to Division III practices. If you got local colleges, small colleges, NAIA, JUCO, D3s, D2s, take them to those practices. Because I think a lot of kids don't understand how hard the 4-year level is, no matter what level. Right? So everybody thinks, well, I could play at this level. And then they go watch a D3 practice and they're like, whoa, like those dudes are big, strong, athletic. They're moving like that like if we didn't know this was a D3, like we wouldn't have known those were D3 players. You know what I mean? And so taking your kids and players to practices so they could see those levels, right? And have a better understanding of like, okay, I got to work harder, right? My coach isn't mean, like no one's not, I'm not slept on. It's like, hey, I just got to work harder. Next thing I would say is like market your players to all levels. And I get some coaches, it's a 4-year coach's job to know who the good players in the area are, right? Like if they're doing their job correctly, they should know who the better players are. But that doesn't mean you turn your nose to the lower levels, right? If a JUCO coach wants to talk to a kid, make that happen. If an NAI or a D3 coach wants to talk to a kid, make that happen. I see a lot where coaches are like, oh, well, my guy's going this level or my guy's going this level. And it's like, man, don't you want your kids to just go to any level. You know what I mean? And so don't turn away the lower levels thinking that your kid is a certain level. And I mean, hey, if the kid is bona fide, a 5-star, has legit Division I offers, then hey, I get you telling, a D2 coach or a D3 coach, JUCO guy, hey, they already have offers. Like it'd be a waste of your time. But I see instances where there's kids with no offers and it's just kind of like, oh, well, they're waiting for this or, oh, they got this. And it's like, well, the coaching community is very small. So like a lot of times some of the schools you're naming or coaches' names, like other coaches know those coaches, right? And usually there's been a conversation had before they approach that coach. You know what I mean? Kind of trying to get a feel of like, is that recruitment real or is that interest real? You know what I mean? And so not turning your nose to any level. And then just market your players, man. Like don't be scared to pick up the phone and ask coaches to come to games. Like, hey, can you come check this kid out? Hey, here's some film. Hey, can you come check this out? And my big thing is a lot of recruitment starts at the lower levels. Like before kids really get the big time offers and they get offers that they want, like a lot of times they're getting recruited by lower level schools, right? And it's when, and it's one of those just things we're in. If I'm a big time school and I see all these other really good lower level schools recruiting you, then that's probably going to make me think like, hey, you're probably good enough to be, let me take a look at you. What am I missing out? Why are all the really good schools in my area recruiting you? Let me go take a look at you, right? You see too many times those kids, like I said, they have no recruitment from anywhere, and they're, well, I'm a Division I player and I just need a chance. And it's like, well, how is that even true? You know what I mean? Like schools at lower levels aren't recruiting you as heavily. Not saying they can't be, but it's just kind of like you're turning down these lower level schools saying you're a Division I player, but none of these lower level schools are like actively recruiting you. Right. And so just really getting away from that D1 or bust mentality. And sometimes it's more with the parents than it is even with the kids. Like it's explaining to mom and dad that like, hey, the game has changed. And coaches, not that coaches don't want high school players, but they want mature players, right? And so they want guys that understand, like when you come in day one, like I don't need you to score the ball. I need you to defend, rebound, and be in shape. And hey, if you make a couple baskets, great. I think too many kids want to come in and be like the guy, and that's only for certain situations. A lot of times you're not going to have the ball in your hands. Like, can you be successful? Not having impact. Yeah, not make it. Not having the ball in your hands, and so I think just coaches like hitting on your resources. Like I have local coaches, high school coaches all the time that, hey man, can you come in and check this kid out? Can you come in and look? And I have no issue with that. Like I said, the coaching community is small. So if I see a kid and I think he's better than my level, I'm definitely going to tell someone who's at the level higher than me. And coaches do that, right? Like coaches want to win and coaches want to do it. Most coaches are in it for the right reason. So it's like, hey man, if I see a kid and I'm a D2 coach and this kid is really, really good and I'm on him and I'm recruiting him and he's a good person, good player, like, yeah, we're in an era now where it's like, I'm going to tell my D1 buddy about him. Right. And I'm going to tell them like, hey, man, there's a kid you might want to go check out, And so, like I said, just getting your players in front of those people. And then social media is a heck of a thing. Like market yourself, get your kids out there, post the film. Film doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It could be a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I would say on film, put everything on there. Put your ability to defend, put your ability to score, put your ability to decision make and make plays, put your ability to shoot the ball, show your athleticism. We're film guys. And so for me, a highlight is just to make me want to watch a full game. So when
Right.
I
It's
see a
kind of
highlight,
the intro, right? Yeah, yeah.
yep, the intro, and that's what it should be. Grab my attention. Your highlight film should be able to grab my attention. So now I'm asking you, hey, I want to watch this full game. I want to see these highlights you're showing me. I want to see what led up to those. I want to see how you do, through the course of the game. I think sometimes people want like the offers off highlights, or they want like, that satisfaction or that validation off the highlight. And it's like, we're just in a culture now that like, I mean, refs have highlights. Anybody could have a highlight, right? And then if your cameraman is good as what they do, like your highlight can make you look like a 5-star.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, no, definitely. I just as a quick aside, it's funny. I had a girl who got a collegiate offer. This was a year ago, and she had a highlight that kind of interested the coach a little bit and was kind of a little bit curious and was kind of lukewarm. But then it was really cool because he went to go see her play, and he essentially pretty much gave her an offer after that she had played, just from the way that she carried herself during like warm-ups, the way that she carried herself on the bench, the way that she played defense, all the things that were never going to make its way on a highlight film because they don't look particularly flashy or interesting, but all those things that are super important, those are the things that got her like on this coach's radar. So like, yeah, your point of like the highlights might get the interest, but it's kind of that, what are you doing throughout the whole game? What are you doing when no one's looking? What are you doing when the ball isn't in your hand? That sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had coaches tell me legitimately, like D1 coaches, D2 coaches, like, hey, I've gone to a game to recruit a kid and I watch him the whole time. Like you said, from him sitting in the stands at the JV game to how he participates in warmups, how he interacts with his teammates in warmups, how he interacts with his coaches, what he does on the bench, when he gets up off the bench to get water. Like they literally watch them the whole game and they want to know and they dissect everything. And this is a really cool story to kind of touch on what you just said is we had a kid this past year, amazing kid, great player, was freshman of the year in our conference, player of the year in our conference, first team all defense, really anchored us and helping us win a championship. He left after 1 year, right? And he goes to this JUCO showcase and he's killing it. And I mean, before he rolled his ankle, they said he was a top 3 player in the event.
Hmm.
So he's going to Colorado Mesa next year, Cap Lila. And Coach Dunlap texted me during the event and he goes, hey, I just want to ask you. He goes, I see Cap getting water and I see him high-fiving his teammates. He's getting water for his other teammates while he's not in the game. Like he's cheerleading on the bench. Like, is this really who he is or is this for show? And I laughed and I like got the biggest smile on my face because I said, that is who he is as a person through and through. I said, that's who he is. And he said, that's great. That's amazing. That's what I was hoping you would say. And so right there, like being a good person sticks out, right? If I'm in a gym and everybody's really, really good, how do I stick out? And literally being a cheerleader, getting water for your teammates. And mind you, he was a top 3 player at the event. So it wasn't like
Yeah,
he wasn't like doing
he
what
could
he
play.
needed to do. Like he
Yeah,
could
he could
play.
play.
Yeah, legit 6'8", like, tons of like, and so, but then you had a coach that was literally like, what caught my eye about this kid was everything he did outside of basketball. Getting
Yeah,
water for your teammate is not a basketball play. Clapping for your teammate, shaking the coach's hand, shaking their hands when they come off the court, those are not basketball plays, but those were the plays that stuck out to the coach because we're in an era where it's like there's more kids than opportunities available. So
sure.
truthfully, coaches are looking for reasons not to recruit you. Like, give me a reason to cross
Gets,
your name off the list
yeah,
because,
short list.
yeah,
Kind of.
because everybody's like, we're splitting hairs at this point. Like, got same GPA, same
Right.
build, same height, like same similar stats. Like, I need a reason not to recruit you over this kid, And so sometimes coaches are asking, like, well, what does my kid have to do to get recruited? And it's really like, well, make sure they are not doing these things so they won't get recruited. You know what I mean? Like, those are some of the things you got to make sure that kids are doing. Body language. Are you sitting up? Are you slumping down? Are you sprinting on, sprinting off? Like I said, how do you treat your parents after the game? Like, how do you treat the opponents? Like, how do you treat just how do you treat the official? All of those things go into it. And like I said, nobody's perfect, and you can have bad days and good days and bad days. So I don't want people to listen to this and think like, man, they got to be perfect. No, no, no. But coaches do think about those things, and those things do go into consideration.
Yeah, and I think if you have players that are high character and are they're doing the things of being great teammates and doing all the things that you mentioned about that particular player. Those are things that don't have off days, right? Though, you might have
Yep.
shooting off days. You might have days where, your game isn't exactly at its top shape, but if your character and the way that you carry yourself and your sportsmanship and your energy and everything, if all those things never waver and stay consistent, then you always have that to go on, and a coach should always notice that, because that doesn't require basketball skill to do. That just requires buy-in and a good attitude sort of thing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And
Absolutely, for sure.
and it's funny too, because you also, as you were talking, it reminded me, and I'm sure you've been in that situation, or know other coaches who've been in that situation where, I had a girl who, this was a couple years ago, Yaritzi, who, a coach asked me about her, and it was one of the coolest things I'd ever heard as a coach, because that coach was actually looking at somebody else, but he noticed her in the way that, she played pretty well, but also some of her body language and her enthusiasm and the way that she carried herself. And that's such a cool feeling as a coach, when somebody was looking at somebody else, but then somebody else catches their eye and they start asking about her. I'm like, oh man, that's like the best feeling ever. You got their attention when they weren't even looking out for you, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was kind of like the situation with Cap too, because, Coach Dunlap, he wasn't necessarily going there to recruit him. Like, he was just
Yeah.
going to the event. And like you said, it stuck out. And one last thing I would say too is just kind of about preparation and stuff. And this just kind of made me think about it when you said it, is motor. And we talk about motor all the time, but motor, 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 motor.
Mm.
Man, like, can you be buzzing? And that motor kind of falls in line with being in shape. But can you be buzzing? I mean, we had a kid who played for me, Samad Hector, man, probably one of the highest motors I've ever seen. Averaged 18 points, 16 rebounds a game. And his Division I offer came off of this play alone. And the coach called me. The coach is a former Division I coach. He was retired now. But he called me. He said, Coach, man, I'm watching Samad's film. And he said, this is a crazy play. We are going down. We turn it over. This team, they go to get a fast break layup. Samad was in the post. He sprinted from the low post all the way down the court, blocked the kid off the backboard. We turned around, got a transition layup. We got the rebound. We threw it down court. We got a layup. When the guy who laid it up, he said, Coach, do you know who was right underneath the guy on your team who laid it up? I said, yeah, it was Samad. He said, it was Samad. He went from the block to blocking the shot off the backboard to being the second person down the court on the other end on a fast break layup. And he said, that told me all I needed to know about his motor, that like he could play at this level.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
And it was like, and don't get me wrong. So yeah, like I said, averaged 18 points, 16 rebounds, 55% from the field, over 40 from the three. But it was like, it wasn't the numbers. It was his motor.
The motor.
The coach was like, his motor. Like, he was like, dude, I talked to him, coach, and like, I should have offered him, and I'm going to call him back and offer him because, man, like, I haven't seen that motor in a long time in a guy. And I mean, it's just one of those things where it's buzzing. And like I said, Samad averaged 16 rebounds per game. And that should just show you, like, his motor was on another level. Like, and I think kids got to understand that is like, coaches want guys that have motors. Like, you got to be able to play hard all the time.
Yeah, no, 100%, because those are the things that they're looking at when they're looking at, game film, and those sort of things, stand out. Dunks are nice too, but you got players who are sprinting the floor one end to the other. That's, yeah, man, because you can't, if that got that motor and that motor doesn't come off, man, you can do a lot with players like that, with that level of conditioning, motor, drive, and everything like that. So no, I can imagine that player who does those sort of things definitely is sticking out for sure. Awesome. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions that I ask every guest, so I'm going to jump right in and go ahead and get started right here with this first one, which is thinking back on your coaching career. What is a specific moment from your coaching career that you think by sharing our listeners would be able to learn from?
Man, I would honestly have to say this year. So this year we started out the season 13-0 at one point or something like that. Our league was really, really good this year. In the Northwest, they ranked the top 10 schools. And in our region, we had 4 of us were ranked in the top 10. 3 of us were in the top 5. 2 of us touched number 1. All 3 of us touched number 2 at one point. And so really tough league this year. We were coming off. We had won the league 5 years in a row, so we had a target on our back. We got to around Christmas time, and we lost 4 of 8. And we lost 4 of 8. 2 of them were in league play, and we were sitting at 2-2 in league. We were about in the 4th place at the time. And after the game, we kind of looked at each other, and just what we were doing was not working, and we knew it wasn't working. We were just having trouble scoring the ball. We were just, man, it just wasn't working. And I give Coach Polis, our head coach, a ton of credit for this. And we looked at each other, and we were just kind of like, hey, like, we got to figure this out. And so we went back to the drawing boards. We went back to the drawing board. We scrapped our offense. We scrapped our rotation. We changed up what we did, and we won our last 14 games, 12 by double digits, won the league for the 6th straight year in a row, and kind of rode off into the sunset with a beautiful love story. And it's one of those things where I give Coach Polis a ton of credit because he trusted us and his assistants to make a change, and he trusted us. And it's hard being the guy in the first chair, because if things don't work out, then you get all the blame, right? What are you doing? They changed the offense. They changed everything. They were just fine, yada, yada. And like, he trusted us. We had a team a couple years ago that like had all the bells and whistles, all the bounce backs, athleticism. I mean, practices were more intense than games, but we underachieved. And we should have made adjustments during that season, and we never did. And when we finally made the adjustments, it was just a little too late. And like I said, we just underachieved. And so I think as coaches, we just kind of knew that if we ever ran into that situation again, that like we had to pull the trigger. And so I would just say, like, trust your gut, man. Like, if you're feeling like it's not working, and it is scary, change is scary, especially mid-season. And if it's truly not working, and if what you're doing is not working, like, don't be scared to make the change. Like, don't be scared to scrap it and change your personnel up about rotations and kind of what you're doing. And I mean, we did that, and we didn't look back, and we sat down on a Sunday, and we mapped it out, and this is what we should do, and just threw out ideas and everything. And like I said, we just knew going into it with the players, we were like, we got to be all in on this, because if we make a change and they feel any uncertainty in this change, like, it ain't going to work. You know what I
They'll
mean?
sense
Like,
it, right?
they'll sense it right away. Players can sense it right away. And so when we made the change, we just went with the utmost confidence, whether we were confident going in or not.
Right.
We just went with the confidence of like, this is going to work. We need to do this to get to where we want to go. And it did. And it worked. And like I said, now we can look back and say, hey, we're geniuses, right? Because we made the change. But I would just say, trust your gut, man. Like, if what you're doing doesn't work, trust your gut and make the change. In our conference, we see a lot of zone defense. I mean, 5 of the 7 teams play zone. Us and one other team really play man-to-man. And so it's ever-changing, right? And so we knew with changing up our rotation, like, shoot, it's a crapshoot, right? Because one game we may see man-to-man, the next game we may see 40 minutes of zone. And so, just trusting that and trusting your staff, because that's why you have them, right? That's why you have your staff there with you, is because those are guys you feel like you could trust when it's time to make those important decisions. And so, just trusting your staff and trusting your gut. Sometimes it'll work out and sometimes it won't. But I think even in the recruiting process, we've gained a lot of credit with that, because players now see that, like, oh, they're not scared to make a change if they have to, right? Like, I think a lot of players are scared nowadays that, like, coaches are stuck in their ways, and oh, it's the good old days. And just because that worked for him, 15 years ago, or with the team, 10 years ago, like, oh, they're not going to change. And you have to, and the players got to mold to the system. And we kind of did the opposite. We molded the system to the players. And I think nowadays we're in a culture where, like, players want to see that. Like, they want to see that, like, hey, you're telling us as players we don't know it all, but yet coaches are kind of just acting like they know it all. And so it's like, you kind of have to have that give and take of like, hey, you don't know it all. We don't know it all either. We're willing to make a change because it wasn't working. So, like, you see us make a change. So now when we ask you to make a change, like, you got to be willing to do it because you see that we're not scared to do it either.
Right. Absolutely. And then I think that honesty and that transparency of, telling your guys, like, hey, this, we got to switch things up. We got to do something different. I think players respect that, because it's really easy to be stubborn, and it's really easy, I think, as a coach to not, admit that you're wrong, or admit that you're doing anything incorrectly. But when you're humble and transparent and open about it, and you commit to whatever new direction you're going, is players appreciate it. Players say, oh, okay, this, just like as players, they're expected to work and improve and make changes. Coaches are also demonstrating that and doing the same thing, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, our big thing is just transparency. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's hard to have hard conversations, but we don't run from them. We run to the hard conversations because we've just shown over the course of time, like that's built our trust, and that's why players love coming and playing here, because they know that like they're gonna get the honest truth, whether it's something they want to hear or they need to hear. Um, yeah, and that's always a fine line. Like, are you telling a player what he wants to hear or what he needs to hear? And for the players that listen to this, like, you got to be accepting of what you need to hear, right? Like, it's not always easy to hear, like, you got to get better at X, Y, and Z. And I know we're in a generation where a lot of people want the validation, and they want to be, they just want to be validated in what they're doing. And I get that.
Hmm.
But as a coach, sometimes it's hard. It's like, man, you can't turn the ball over 6 times and then want me to pat you on the back. Like, you know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean?
I get it. No, for sure. Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest what I like to call a 60-second soapbox. We can go over 60 seconds. It's just the title I like to put to it, but I like to use it, Coach, as a way for you to get out kind of a final message, a closing thought, a final idea, something that you want to leave the listeners with. You can take it any direction you want, basketball-wise or coaching-wise, because, hey, it's your soapbox after all. So, Coach, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the floor, and once more, I'm just going to go ahead and let you take it from here.
Yeah, no, cool. My soapbox, man, would just be man, the basketball community has to get along, man. If we're all in this for the right reasons and we are truly trying to help kids, then we got to come together more and just be in it for the right reasons. High school coaches got to stop beefing with the AAU coaches and vice versa. Everybody's should be helping to try to just, be a village and help get the kids in that village to the right opportunities. It doesn't matter who gets the credit, whether it's you or somebody else, man, as long as, the kids are in a good position and you're doing right by them. That's all that really should matter. I see a lot with being on both sides of the travel ball scene and being on the JUCO side, and just the back and forth with everybody hating AAU and high school should take over, and the high school coaches and AAU coaches beefing and going back and forth and all of that. And I'm just like, man, let's all quit it out, man. Let's all get along. Let's do it for the right reasons. Like, let's try to get the best players in the gym. Let's try to get the kids that want to be, coached and developed. Like, let's get them together and let's just help the kids. Because at the end of the day, all of us preach this, that it's for the kids, right? And so if it's for the kids, then let's try to just, do whatever we can to come together and, make it for the kids.
Don't, yeah, it's easy to lose sight of that, right? It's easy to get caught up in your own thing or your own ego, or all this other stuff, and sometimes the very kids that we're serving are the ones that we think about last, even though they definitely shouldn't be the way that way at all.
Yep, yeah, no, for sure, man. And I get it. Like I said, there's a lot of money thrown around in the
Oh
in the
yeah,
in the
big
travel
business.
ball game. It's a business, and it's a big business, man. And I get it. Like, I'm a business guy, got a business background, majored in business and marketing, and so I get all that. I get the business side of it, but even though it's a business, man, at the end of the day, like, yeah, like, still got to kind of keep it about the kids. Like I said, I totally get it. It's a business. I'm for it, right? Like, I understand the economics behind it, but at the end of the day, like I said, I really want to see more people put the person or the kid before the player and the business side of it, because the money in the business will always be there.
Definitely, for sure. Coach, again, man, I this was great. This is such a pleasure to hear your thoughts, and somebody who's working on getting players college ready. Myself, I loved hearing from you, and all the things you shared about recruiting and about training players and about what stands out with players, and just the way that you see the game right now at the JUCO and collegiate level, and where you think it's going, man. It's a pleasure. So I just want to say thanks again. I really loved having this chat with you and picking your brain and hearing all your thoughts. I know you're super excited to get going here for another year at Lower Columbia, so just want to wish you the best of luck as you continue onwards with your season and with everything coming up. And again, thank you so much, Coach. This really was a pleasure.
No, I appreciate you getting on, man. I'm sorry it took us so long to finally connect, man, but I'm really happy that we were able to connect and I was able to hop on today. And please, man, in the future, man, I would love to get back on and and just chop it up some more, man. I really appreciate it. So Please, man, don't hesitate to have me on as a guest again.
For sure. Thank you. And thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.